You're about to meet a man who is a mental health expert, but he decided that the best way to help people understand mental health is not from him, but from the people living with mental health issues. We caught up with Dr. Ken Duckworth as he met some of the stars in his new book.
Hi. What a pleasure. Oh,
if you didn't know better,
how fun is it to meet you? Yay.
You would think that psychiatrist Dr. Ken Duckworth was doing things backwards.
Hi. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
First, he wrote a book.
What a pleasure.
Now, he's meeting the people whose stories he told in the book.
Thank you for this.
The timing was not his. It was COVID's.
This funny thing happened in the pandemic. Mental health became a we problem, not a they problem. So instead of being asked to do media events on mass murder and mental illness, which was a very common category of media requests, now it was how do people cope? How do you deal with isolation? Does teletherapy work? How do you stay connected to other people? If you feel depressed, is that normal in these difficult times? My kid is having suicidal thoughts. This is all the stuff I'm interested in.
Today I am with Dr. Ken Duckworth.
Duckworth, a Harvard professor and the chief medical officer for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, interviewed over 100 people via Zoom about their mental health journeys.
Because they're experts too. You lived with something for 30 years, you've learned something. Back in the day, you were ashamed and you chose privacy. Now it's, I went through something, maybe it could have meaning to help another person. That gives them the gift of being a teacher and also gives meaning to what they went through.
3 of the people whose stories are in the book
And I do.
are Tara Carter,
I would say until 2009.
Kenya Phillips,
I was hearing voices.
and Elisa Norman.
You 3 are amazing and you all have different lessons.
Dr. Duckworth has flown to Atlanta to meet them in person.
I was in the music industry and, really started going through a cycle of manic and depressive episodes. But, culturally, there's a lot of stigma as it relates to mental health in the Black community. And so I did not know what was going on with myself. I just knew that things was not right, and it continued to escalate until I landed in the hospital in 2014. And so I did get a diagnosis of bipolar disorder.
Today, Tara Carter works at Skyland Trail, a residential mental health treatment center, and she's one of Georgia's peer specialists, people with lived experience who are certified to help those in crisis.
One of the things that you hear a lot is, well, you don't understand, you don't know what it's like to live with this. And, and that's when I can kindly come in and say, oh, yes, I do know.
I was at a historically Black college, and while I was there, I went through a mental breakdown.
Kenya Phillips is now the manager of support groups at NAMI.
NAMI was my gateway. That's when I started my wellness journey because I was around other people who looked like me. And it's not always like a color thing. It was just more so people who experienced a mental health diagnosis also, and they were living some productive lives.
When I was 25, I had my first psychotic episode. That's me in high school.
Elisa Norman wrote her own book about her mental health journey.
Well, that's good.
Sharing her story with an even bigger audience is an important step.
Everybody has a purpose on this planet, and that's my purpose. And I had to go through so much since I was 25 to get to this point. And I can talk about it without having that fear, because if I can help one person understand, although you have been to a mental health facility, although you have been diagnosed with a mental health condition, you can live successfully in recovery.
The seeds of this book, of Duckworth's career choice, were planted when he was a young boy.
My dad was a loving, good guy. I was never mistreated. When I was 8 years old, I was playing in the basement with my friends. We had built a fort underneath a bunch of blankets covered by books, like every other kid has ever done. And I heard these booming sounds upstairs. And clearly my dad was screaming or something was happening. And I came up to see the police remove him from the house. And this was my first introduction into the idea that my dad had something that was more complicated than the next dad.
Duckworth's father had bipolar disorder at a time when no one spoke of it. His father was hospitalized for years over the course of his life.
I went to visit him at the state hospital many times, and it's really the lowest moment in my whole career. I'm overwhelmed by the visit. I sit in this parking lot, and I thought to myself, I am the most alone person in this whole world. Like, there is absolutely nobody that I can talk to about this. I wanted to know what happened to him, and I needed to know everything I could, so I made a decision to become a psychiatrist to help him.
You are not alone is what Duckworth needed to know long ago in that hospital parking lot. Now he and 100+ people are part of a book whose mission and message is just that.
People feel so much shame and negative social attitudes about the brain and mental health. We don't understand it very well. Fine. That doesn't mean that you should hide in shame and secrecy with conditions that clearly do better when you're connected, integrated, and talking about it.
Thank you. Bye now.